prompting for these things. Okay, so before we, the first thing we're going to do when we start is I just have to read through this disclaimer. It's an important point of this webinar. So the educational material presented at all Jonathan Shub's Educational Services webinars is for general educational information purposes. No seminar is intended to provide personalized medical or legal advice, and the material presented is not necessarily considered mainstream healthcare. It is left to the discretion and judgment of its sole responsibility of each attendee to determine what is necessary for his or her own practice. It is the sole responsibility of the attendee at any Jonathan Shub's Educational Services seminar to comply with local and federal laws regarding the use of the material presented as it relates to the scope and type of attendee's practice. The speaker nor Jonathan Shub's Educational Services can be held responsible for the material, opinions, or any inadvertent error or omissions in the preparation or presentation of material. Further, nothing in the material should be construed as a claim regarding a procedural protocol, therapy, test, product. Okay, so it's just a standard, a standard disclaimer. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at three main parts. The first is how to support the Wei Qi or the immune system using the UAT system. The second is how to navigate the emotional impact that this time is happening with us. And we're going to be looking at how we're going to tonify some of the yang meridians in relation to this and dispersing the yin meridians. And how to treat people affected with external viral attacks, not to be done. And it's very clear that I'm saying at the moment, this is not to be done in the clinic. This is extra information if you're dealing with family members, if you're dealing with yourself, or outside of this area, we can use it for some viral attacks. Okay. So before we start, one of the things that I've been thinking about that's quite important is that we also take a look at, we're going to look at what acupuncture and how we can do it, but how are we taking care of ourselves at the time? One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is how to use this time to really, this was an unexpected event. There's obviously lots of problems that we're facing, but there's also, in the Chinese character for crisis, there's the character for opportunity. So what are the opportunities, or how can I use this time that was unexpected for its best advantage? And for myself, I've been thinking about, I need to work on my self-care, how to take care of myself. Also, how to, the other thing is to go back to my basics. I've been going back to re-looking at all the foundations of stuff I've done, thinking about theories, thinking about, the other night I was spending hours on my desk working through some ideas with the I Ching and going back to that, doing I Ching readings. So I think it's really important that we take this time also to say, okay, we're in a moment where obviously the world is in a situation it's never been before, where we all need to slow down and take care of ourselves, be here. What are some of the things that we can be doing to actually use this to the best moment we can? So one of the great things that I've been doing recently is I've been doing some Qigong. And this was with Anthony. I think he's here. Anthony's here. Anthony Montieth. Where he has been really wonderful, and he's provided a free Facebook group where you can go, and he's giving us challenges and giving us exercises to work on the Qigong. And it's really been part of things that I've been really happy with. So you'll notice that I'm putting in his information, and then there's also a link from the I'll put it in again. I didn't know if everybody got it. So there you're getting a link to his Facebook page. And if you want to go and you want to do some Qigong, specifically for Chinese, he's working a lot with Chinese medical practitioners. So if you want, you can go and click on that, sign up to his page. That's been something I've been really doing every day since he put it up, and it's a great thing. I've also been, working on the projects that I haven't had time to do yet. So those projects might be stuff like there's a book that I've been trying to finish, and I've been working on that. I have to do some projects here for running the clinic. So this is really a time for us to all come in and come into it. Okay. Great. So I just wanted to give that out to you. So we're going to start. Before I start, I just saw that there was a question here as will there be handouts to the printout? So, two things. Yes, you will get a handout that you can download in a PDF form, and that will be sent out to you after the after the webinar has finished. We're also recording the webinar, and you'll have access to watch it online if you've missed it or you didn't get everything and you want to go back and see something. So those two things will happen after the course starts, after the course finishes. Okay, so now we're going to go into, let's start looking at it. And the first thing we're going to talk about is supporting the immune system. Now, in Chinese medicine, the immune system doesn't really exist. In Chinese medicine, we're talking about Wei Qi. So we're going to look at how we can build up our Wei Qi and how we can help the patients if we are treating them in person or etc. How we can deal with that. Okay. All right. So now, two things I should tell you is that in the UAT system we do some things a little bit different than in the traditional TCM. Some things are very classic, and some things are I've brought in some stuff new. Now, in the UAT system, which I know a lot of you have actually done courses with me, and for those of you who haven't, so UAT means Unified Acupuncture Theory. And the basis of the theory is based on the I Ching and how we can see how all the meridians interact with each other. And this allows us to sort of navigate many different other systems to understanding the mechanisms behind it. So we can see the traditional TCM point indications through this. We can understand the 5-element acupuncture, the Worsley approach, the Korean approach, the Saam acupuncture, Japanese acupuncture, esoteric acupuncture, master tongue acupuncture, and Tan acupuncture. All of them sort of come together in the UAT model. And so we start from there, and then we go into other branches where we take that information and we develop it. So in the foundations course, we're talking about musculoskeletal problems and pain. What we're going to be referring to today in this webinar is the more internal stuff. So we're going to be looking at the 4-needle 5-element Saam acupuncture approach from the UAT system. And we'll also be looking at the I-Ching Bagua with meridian interactions. And that comes more from the lineage of Choi Chen and Dr. Tan. Master Tong also has some information from there. So we're going to be using those two models. So one will be the I-Ching Bagua and one will be the 4-needle 5-element. I'm not going to go into the whole construction of all the ideas behind them. I'm going to be more giving you, this is the protocol, or this is how we treat, and this is when we would be using it. So yeah, and I'll answer some of the questions based on that information if it's not clear how you would apply it. If it's to understand the basic principles behind it, that we don't have the time for the scope of this webinar. So we're going to start by looking at the Wei Qi and how we tonify Wei Qi. And to tonify the Wei Qi, we're going to be using the Chinese medicine, the Saam acupuncture, the 4-needle 5-elements. And in Chinese medicine, and what we're going to talk about is what we want to be doing is supplementing metal. We want to be supplementing the lung meridian. Now, the lungs are the organ in the meridian that is, from all the yin meridians, is the meridian that's the most interacts with the external world. That's where we breathe the air in through our nose, goes to our lungs, and we all know the whole respiratory system. Also in Chinese medicine, we look at the Wei Qi, and Wei Qi goes between the fascia and the skin, and it flows in that area there. And the meridian and organ that's most responsible for Wei Qi in the yin organs is going to be the lungs. So what we're going to do is by supplementing the lungs, we're going to be helping the Wei Qi better protect the body. Now, when we say we're protecting the body, does this mean you're not going to get this a specific virus or a cold? It can help you resist it so your body doesn't respond to it. Now, we know that with the current situation, even if you don't have any symptoms and your body responds very well to it, you still might be a carrier. So it's very important to know is that the Wei Qi is not about stopping you from becoming a carrier of a virus or a carrier of something. It's what it's doing, it's helping your body respond to it better. And it might respond to the point where it's not going to have any physical problems with you, or it will help you to respond to it better if you do have some physical responses to it. So I just want to be clear is that we can't say that you're not going to get something if your Qi is really good and your Wei Qi is full. From a biomedicine point of view, we know that you can still be a carrier of it, but your body doesn't necessarily respond to it. So it's called an asymptomatic response to an illness or to a virus. So how do we go about reinforcing the lung meridian using the 4-needle 5-element approach? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using 4 needles. That's what 4-needle 5-element is. Okay, and so what we look at is we start with, let me just get this right. Okay, so we're going to start looking here at the metal element because lung is part of the metal element. And what we're going to say is we're going to use the part of the I Ching which informs us that the parent nourishes the child. So when a child is in need, it can take the energy or take the qi from the parent to help rebuild itself. So how do we translate that into acupuncture? Well, we use the shu antique point, the shu transporting point, along the meridians, and we're going to use the 5-needle interactions. So, for example, we have metal, and metal's parent is earth, right? So earth can nourish metal. So how do we access metal's nourishing qualities? We look for the earth point on the metal meridian. So in this case, the earth point on the metal meridian is lung 9. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be tonifying, okay, so I'm going to put a T here. We're going to be tonifying lung 9. And then lung 9 can get its energy from where? Well, lung 9 can get its energy from spleen 3, because spleen 3 is the earth point of earth, and the earth point of earth can send earth chi to lung 9, which can receive earth chi and use it in the metal element. So we're going to be tonifying spleen 3. And so when I say tonifying, we're going to be using tonifying needle techniques, which I'm sure if you're all acupuncturists, you know them very well. They can be insertion, how they're breathing, the type of insertion, needle manipulation, etc. Now, in the UAT system, when we're tonifying, what we're going to be doing is we will always be tonifying on the left side of the body. So we will be using lung 9 and spleen 3 as a tonification manipulation of the needle on the left side of the body. And what that's going to do, it's going to help bring the earth chi into the metal. Okay. And then what's very specific to the Saam approach is that, this we can find in Japanese meridian theory, just spleen 3 and lung 9 and different types, the way Stephen Birch teaches it, etc. However, what's specific to the Saam is that we also bring in the controlling relationship. So we have the parent nourishes the child and the grandparent controls the child. And in a normal situation, we need both of those. We need to have something giving us energy, giving us chi, and then something helping us to direct our chi. Okay? So that is in a natural position. However, when the element that we're talking about is weaker, we need to reduce the controlling element of telling us how to use the qi, because we just need to concentrate on receiving the qi. So, what element controls metal is fire. So we're going to start looking for the point that can help us to reduce the fire in the metal element. So to do that, we start with the metal point, the fire point in metal, which is lung 10. So we're going to disperse. And when I say disperse, I know some people use the term sedate. So you can also talk about sedating lung 10. And then we're going to use as the arrow is going back to fire, okay, so we're going to look at lung 10 to open up a path for the fire to leave the metal element. And then we're going to look for the fire point in fire to receive that energy. So we're going to look at heart 8, and we're going to disperse heart 8 also. Okay, so here we're going to be dispersing lung 10 and heart 8, and in the UAT, sorry, that wasn't meant to happen. In the UAT system, these are going to be on the right side of the body. Okay, so our treatment is going to be lung 9 and spleen 3, left side with tonification, and then we're going to be doing right side dispersing lung 10 and heart 8. So some of the questions are, is there a specific order that you should be doing them in? In reality, you can do them as long as you have all the needles in place. They're going to start interacting with each other, so it's not that important, the order. If you want it to be extremely conscientious and do it the traditional way, you do the tonification point of the affected element first, that would be lung 9, followed by the supplemental tonification point of the element that is supporting the element, so that would be spleen 3. So we do lung 9 and spleen 3 on the left side. And then the third point would be lung 10, so we'd be dispersing the element that is affected first, so lung 10, and sending that to heart 8. So the order would be lung 9, spleen 3, then lung 10, then heart 8. Okay? Now another way to think about this is the Wei Qi is like the armor of the body. Okay? So if our Wei Qi is our armor of the body, it should be made of metal traditionally. That was the strongest armor we could have. Now, when we have metal armor, it needs to be two things. It needs to be extremely strong, okay? And it also has to be rigid. For it to be the strongest type of metal that we have, it needs to be more rigid, quite rigid, for it to stop what's coming in. And at the same time, it needs to be oiled. It needs to have, so it can move, but it's rigid, it's strong. So if we look at the two elements that are interacting here with metal, we look at earth, and earth has a function of, being slippery. It is the great lubrificator of the body. It's the grease that makes everything else move. When we look at the seasons, it's the interseason. What helps one thing move to the other. So by bringing in earth into metal, it's like we're greasing all the joints of the armor, and we're giving the armor that ability to move within itself. But at the same time, we're reducing the fire. And when fire comes to metal, metal starts to bend a bit, and it becomes more malleable. So by reducing fire, we're reinforcing that strength aspect of metal. And by introducing the earth, we start to give it a little bit more grease, so we can actually move with it and still maintain the rigidity and the protection. So that's another way of also thinking about how we can do this. So the points we'll be using again will be lung 9 and spleen 3 tonification on the left side, and lung 10 and heart 8 dispersion on the right side. You might also notice that the 2 points here for the spleen and the lung are also the yuan source points. So they're also helping the lungs and the spleen remember their proper function within the body, which is just another added to it. So this is the first point that we were going to, the first treatment that we can look at in relationship to helping build up Wei Qi using the 4-needle 5-element approach and UAT approach. So this one, as it is a 4-needle 5-element, it's very conductive to being introduced to any other system, which means if you also wanted to help treat somebody for any other problem, pain, so you want to do some distal needling or local needling, if you wanted to work on other internal problems, you can bring in any other system with this, and you don't have to worry about if it's on the right arm, the wrong arm, etc. This can support any other treatment applied upon it. Okay, as long as you have these 4 points and they're working in the, the one thing I would say is if you are going to add other things to them, just make sure that you are more conscious of your tonification dispersion techniques, so the body really understands the role of these 4 points together. So this is a really general one that you can use for everything you want to do, and you can just add on to it, right? So you can add on to it any other types of treatments, 5-element approach, traditional TCM, for any other diagnosis you have, this will work. And the other treatment that we're going to look at in how we can interact with the Wei Qi is from the I Ching Bagua. So from the I Ching Bagua, we're going to look at the main meridian is still going to be the lung. And then we're going to look at the other meridians that are at the most external aspects of the body. So Tai Yin is the most external yin meridian of the body. Okay, so Tai means it gets the most amount of sunlight, and yin, it's on the inside of the body. So it gets the most amount of sunlight on the inside of the body, meaning it's the most exposed and interacting with the exterior the most it can. Okay, so we're going to use the lung and the spleen, very similar to what we used before. The other meridian we're going to use is Yongming. Now, although the Taiyong is also very used as external, we're going to look at that later for another treatment. However, the meridians and organs of Yongming are the large intestine and the stomach. So this is the first organ that actually gets in contact with physical elements, food and drink from outside of the world, from the outside of the body. And the large intestine is at the end, right? It's the beginning and the end of the tube. So both of these have a lot of interactions with the external world. So we choose the meridians Tai Yin and Yongming. So this can be used for what we call metal earth affections, so digestion, rhinitis, asthma, allergies, dermatological problems when they come from external pathogens. Okay, so we can be using it for all of these as an idea of symptomology, but it's also a very good idea because if we have a low digestion, it's because our Wei Qi often is not responding well. Rhinitis is also a question of Wei Qi. Asthma can be considered a Wei Qi problem, depending. It might be Wei Qi with the lower Wei Qi, or the root of Wei Qi is not rooted. That can be a secondary question. Allergies is the same thing, dermatological problems. So we can see that we're in this Wei Qi movement here. And we can also use it for the second stage, or the Yongming stage of the 6 stages. So I'm not going to explain really how I do the Bagua conversions and how I get to the points. What we're going to look at is just the 4 points that come up here. Sorry, the 8 points. So the first thing to understand is when we're doing I Ching Bagua is that we have to have a couple of patterns that follow. So we have to say that, for example, here we have a yin meridian. Lung, okay, is yin. Now when we use a broken line, you'll see the broken lines here also. This means yin. So we have a yin meridian next to a yang meridian. So if we look at the arm, we have the lung meridian is yin, right? So sorry, let me stay here. Okay. So what's going on here? There we go. Okay. So for example, here we have the arm. Okay. And here we have the leg. So in the arm, we have one meridian that's yin and one meridian that's yang. And then in the leg, we have one meridian that's yang and one meridian that's yin. And then here on the right side of the body and the left side of the body. So what we will notice is that we have the right side of the body, one arm, one part is yin, so here it's the arm, and then one part is yang, so here it's the leg. So we have the lung and the stomach on the right side. On the left side, we have one part that is yang and one part that is yin. So here we have the arm is going to be a yang meridian and the leg will be a yin meridian. And then we look at the arm, so on we have one yin and one yang meridian. So the right is yin and the left is yang. And then here we have one yang and one yin. So the left is yang and the right is yin. So we have this yin, yang pattern. We're constantly alternating. So we're having the balance of yin and yang, both going on a vertical from the all down the right side and all down the left side, and also the horizontal right arm and leg. So this creates a lot of movement in the body going through it. So of course we could also invert this, right? So if we wanted to, we could have done just the opposite with the placement of the meridians. And we could have gone like this. Let's see if I can get this over here. So I could have gone, for example, if I were to make another one over here, just to show you, I can make the line like that. Okay. So here, if this is right, left, arm, and leg. So we could have gone yang, yin, yang, yin. And there we would have large intestine, lung, kidney. Sorry, not kidney. What am I thinking? Not kidney. Spleen. Sorry, stomach here. And spleen here. Okay, so we could have had either pattern of choosing them. And that's up to you deciding on why you would want to do it. You can have many different reasons. So we've come up with this right, left, arm, leg pattern of yin and yang. And then what we do is we make sure that the meridians all interact with each other. So if you follow the UAT system, we'll see that lung interacts with large intestine, that's system 1, interior exterior. Lung interacts with stomach, it's system 3, closed circuit meridians. And lung interacts with spleen, system 2, large meridians. So all of these lines here are showing how the meridians interact. And all the other meridians interact in the same way. So we get this structure showing that we have all the meridians interacting. And then we choose the points. And to get to the points, we're not going to worry about it too much how we get them. But we're going to see that we're going to have the third point, most distal point. So that's going to be lung 9, large intestine 3, spleen 3, and stomach 43. And we're going to have the sixth point, and the sixth point is the Husi point of each meridian. So lung 5, large intestine 11, spleen 9, and stomach 36. So you're going to have these 8 points together, which are all going to come together to really help build this tie-in Yongming, support it, and for that to interact the best. So you'll also notice that the key points from the last protocol, which were lung 9 and spleen 3, come up again. A couple of things. When we're doing the I-Ching Bagua, there is no need for tonification, dispersion. There's no specific order to the points. The idea is that when the needles are in, it's how they interact with each other that makes all the difference. So we don't really have to worry about needle order, needle manipulation, anything like that. You just put in the 8 points and that's it. You don't have to worry about getting the Qi or any of this stuff. So this is probably a very good treatment. It's a great treatment. But I use this more when I don't have anything else I need to do. I use the first treatment, tonifying the lungs, when I also want to incorporate other information, do something else with the patient. Here, this is, I need to be either treating, these types of problems that we see here, or I want to help improve the Wei Qi, but that's it. That's all the patient needs. The patient doesn't have any other underlying symptoms or any underlying patterns or things that need to be worked on. So I would say, as if you just want to really work on the Wei Qi level and there's nothing else going on, this is a more complete treatment. If you want to work on the Wei Qi level and bring in other stuff, then you'll use the lung treatment that we looked at before. So for the moment, I'm going to give you a couple of moments, and I would like you to write your questions now in the questions and answers, and then I'm going to go and I'll read through them and answer what's going on. Okay? So let's see here. Let's see what's going on here. So, 4 needle, 5 elements. Can you use magnets or press needles? I would say you can. I don't have experience using it. I haven't done it before. Logically, it works. That was a question that came up yesterday. You can do it. However, I don't have experience on the efficacy, how well it works or not. So if you do it, that is great, perfect. Or use acupressure. Acupressure is also a possibility. The one thing is when we're doing acupressure on ourselves, right? Because that's what we'd be talking about here. It's a little bit more difficult because we're using our own chi for the acupressure. But it works. You just have to make sure especially if you're doing the tonification of the lung points, only those 4 points, that you explain to them how to tonify and disperse in the acupressure. That you explain that to your patients, right? So you explain to them the rotation, the type of movements, just to make sure that they're getting the right movement from it. But yes, acupressure is very possible. So do you switch left and right according to male and female? Personally, I don't. I am an egalitarian in my approach to Chinese medicine, and I've never seen any logical reason for why it really changes between men and women. And in the clinic, there's no difference for me. I haven't seen any clinical difference if you do, women on the right and men on the left. That's a traditional Saam approach. Women are always right. But no, I don't think that there is a real difference between them. Do you prescribe, let me just see where we are. So do you prescribe these points to your patients online during this time? I do, depending on what they're doing. What I might do actually is, instead of just prescribing the points, especially with the Tai Yin Yong Ming, I'll show them how to do some massage, some self-massage, and I'll concentrate on them massaging these meridians. So they would just be massaging the lung meridian, the large intestine meridian, the stomach meridian, and the spleen meridian. I might be doing that more than giving the specific points, because with the specific points, it can get a little bit more tricky. Okay. I missed the first 15 minutes due to technical issue. How can I watch again? We're going to send you the link to watch the recording online. That's not a problem. Why not use Tai Yin, Tai Yong to strengthen Wei Qi? We are going to see at the end that we're going to actually use that for a different reason. Tai Yin, Tai Yong is not as good for strengthening Wei Qi as it is for helping the response when Wei Qi is being activated. Which system is lung, stomach, or large intestine, spleen? Okay, so lung to stomach. Yes, I get it. So lung interacts with all 3 of these meridians. Lung interacts with large intestine, interior, exterior. So in the UAT system, system 1. Lung interacts with spleen. So they're both part of metal, right? So bilao. Lung interacts with spleen, system 2, large meridian. The Tai Yin of the arm can interact with the Tai Yin of the foot. And now system 3 for stomach is called closed circuit meridians. It comes from the Manaka. Now systems 1, 2, and 3 are all based on placement. And so the lung meridian is in the front, so it can interact with the other 3 meridians that are in the front. Large intestine, system 1. Spleen, system 2. And then system 3, closed circuit meridians, is the stomach, which is the last front meridian based on placement. So that's how the lung interacts there. Okay, would you use MOX instead of needling on the 4 needle 5 elements? Personally, I wouldn't in this case. There are times when I would suggest moxa, but that is when we want to bring fire into an element. Unless, of course, you are very good and have studied the Japanese moxa techniques of how to know when you're tonifying and dispersing and working with different types of yin-yang energies. So if you do have that quality, then you can incorporate the moxa. If you're talking about traditional Chinese style moxa, I wouldn't necessarily use moxa at this time. I would prefer acupressure or even the magnets than the moxa, because the moxa is bringing another element of heat into the body, and that can, if we're not very careful, it will have a problem that way. Okay. So there was a question, is how many are we? We're at 68 people so far, so that's nice to know. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the next step.